What's good? There was a good article written a few days ago, and it was called "The Tortured Life of Edwin Valero," and it was published by BoxingNewsOnline.net. I cannot pronounce the name of the author, and I apologize for that. But this was an awesome article. Um, sorry, basically recalling the life and the tragedy of Edwin Valero. This man was an enigma. 27 wins, 27 knockouts. Talk about a perfect record. And this man had unmatching intensity in the ring. Doug Fisher says that in this article, actually, he said that he had never seen anyone as intense as him, and he just saw him hitting the bag, and he hit him. He saw him hit the bag, hit the double M bag, and he was like, "Wow, this man, he's got something." And then he saw him spar, and he was very impressed by his intensity and just how he would beat up people. Edwin Valero said in an interview that he was beating up he was beating up Oscar De La Hoya before he fought Pacquiao. So this man was no joke. He was intense, and I'm sure he was like 100 every, like full throttle every time he sparred, every time he fought. You could see it. Look at this man. And the people that knew him, they sensed something fishy about him. Like, this guy, Bob Arum said, this guy's erratic. He's unpredictable. He seems like a nice guy one day, but then he's completely opposite the next. Oh, this guy was an enigma. No one knew what was up with this guy, at least in the private life. And perhaps, as this article states, it's a great article. I will leave it in this. I will leave the link in the description. It is really good. And for anyone that was interested in Edwin Valero, or the tragedy that conspired, everyone knows that. Well, if you don't know, he killed his wife, and then he hung himself in prison. So this man is the ultimate, to me, he is the ultimate what if. Because if he was still around, I believe that he would have beaten all these clowns. He would have beaten Danny Garcia. He would have beaten Adrian Broner. He would have beaten Mike Alvarado. He would have beaten Brandon Rios. Probably, I think he would have beaten, what's his name, Terrence Crawford. These guys did not stand a chance. Did not stand a chance if they fought Edwin Valero. This guy would have knocked their lights out. He was just that good. That much power, that much intensity inside the ring. This guy, he was crazy. And maybe literally. Because he had a spot on his brain. In 2004, everything I'm saying is something in the article, so it is just me recalling and me giving my opinion of what was in this article, which is very interesting. He was gonna fight on HBO in 2004. A lot of people recall that he wasn't allowed to fight in the United States, so he left to fight in Japan and in Venezuela and in other countries, right? But he wasn't allowed to fight in the United States on HBO because they found a spot on his brain. And this spot could have been some type of brain damage. And from what everybody says that they sensed about him and what he eventually ended up doing, maybe he did have mental problems. Plus, taking all those blows to the head, the way he fought, his lifestyle, he was an addict too. He was alcoholic. He had a DUI in Texas, as Chavez Jr. did. I just had to bring him up. Also, he did cocaine. And everyone knows that those drugs, they kill brain cells. Plus, that spot on his brain could have been from a previous injury in a motorcycle accident that he had before he started fighting professionally, before he became famous. So all this could have added up to him having brain damage, having mental problems. This is why it's so important for these fighters to be mentally evaluated. Just like Jermaine Taylor. Jermaine Taylor should not have been allowed to fight. He should not have been allowed to fight Sam Sullivan because he has brain damage. And perhaps Edwin Valero suffered from brain damage. That's why he might not have been pleasant to be around. And he also beat his wife multiple times. They had calls from the police. One time his wife checked into the hospital with broken ribs. It was just a tragic story. Of course, none of his actions are excused just because he suffered from brain damage, right? But you live in violence, and your life is gonna be violent, right? Like, you produce violence, you fight for violence. And a lot of these fighters, they gotta be mentally evaluated, because also, like, you gotta be a little crazy, right? You gotta be a little crazy to get into the ring, take punches, give them back, and do that for a living. You're fighting another man for a living. You're trying to knock his head off. So it's not a joke. It's not like you can't, cliche, right? But you can't play boxing. And that's the thing. You cannot play boxing. But Edwin Valero didn't play, man. He did not play. He was there to knock fools out. He was one of the most exciting fighters. And I really believe if he was still around, boxing would be a better place. This guy had the potential to be a superstar. Just look at him. He was a character. He had the look of like no one else. He had the style, the intensity. I've said this a few times in this video already. The intensity. Unmatched. The fighting style. Knockouts. People want to see knockouts. And he talked too. He's like, you see that? Watch that interview. He talked about De La Hoya. It's in Spanish, but I'm sure you could get it translated. And he's like, I want to fight Pacquiao because I like punch. He's like, I don't like Mayweather. I don't want to fight Mayweather. I want to fight Pacquiao because I like to punch. I like to fight punchers. He liked to fight. And a lot of these fighters really they begin fighting because they come out from this upbringing that they had to fight for survival. So now they're getting paid to fight. They're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna fight for a living. Hell yeah, I'm gonna fight. And you're gonna pay me for doing that? I would love to. Like a Edwin Valero, like a Ruslan Provodnikov, who just like to get in the ring and fight these fools and try to knock their heads off. They don't score points. They try to knock fools out. This is what I admired about Edwin Valero. And this is why he's the ultimate what if in the sport of boxing, perhaps of all time. No one has a record like Edwin Valero. He had that's what you call a perfect record, what he had. He has the perfect record, unscathed. He died unscathed, undefeated. No one's made it to the final bell against him. And who knows, right? Who knows? What if he fought Pacquiao? He might have been able to beat him. Doug Fisher thinks he would have beaten Pacquiao. Who knows? Who knows? That's why it is so unfortunate. And I don't want to understate him, the tragedy that is him murdering his wife and leaving his kid. Or I don't know if he had multiple kids, but leaving his children orphans, pretty much. Yeah, he left them both. He left them orphans. That is a very tragic story. But us as boxing fans and sports fans, we're selfish. Just like Chris Benoit, even though Edwin Valero didn't kill his family, but it's just as tragic. He killed he killed his wife, and then he killed his son, and then he killed himself. That's a murder-suicide, just like Edwin Valero. And fans don't... That's different because he killed his son, of course. I already said that, but fans still want to remember him as they saw him in the ring, as they remember him, because we don't know these people personally, so we just want to watch them and remember them for the great memories that they gave us. But if they're scumbags, then they're scumbags. Edwin Valero was a scumbag, but he should have been mentally evaluated, as Chris Benoit was. There's been many reports that Chris Benoit had the mind of an 80-year-old Alzheimer patient. So this guy, it's impossible for him to be right in his mind. As Edwin Valero, he was in a motorcycle accident. He had a he had a spot in his brain. So, and then you're taking punches for a living, and then in the case of Chris Benoit, you're getting chair shots to the face. You're doing diving headbutts from top of steel cages. He should have not been allowed to wrestle. Maybe Edwin Valero, as tragic as it may have been for boxing fans, shouldn't have been allowed to fight anymore. Maybe he should have... There was people trying to help him around. He was supposed to go to rehab. He was supposed to go to rehab, but then he crashed because he was drunk. And then he took his wife because they were looking for him, and that's when he killed her. So the whole thing's very tragic, and it leaves a hole in boxing fans' hearts, because this man could have been so much, could have meant so much to the boxing world, could have produced so many great fights with so many fighters. Imagine a Valero versus Marquez fight at 135. Wow. Or a 140, probably. That fight would have taken at 140. That fight would have been crazy. Valero had a shot against Marquez, even against Pacquiao. Imagine that. Or Valero against Ruslan Provarnikov or Tim Bradley. He's the ultimate what if. He's the ultimate what if, and left a gaping hole in the sport. There's a lot of fighters like that there's what ifs, like Panchito Bojado, like if he trained harder, or guys that died early like Salvador Sanchez, though he was already a legend. But imagine how much greater he would have been if he hadn't died. But I think Edwin Valero is the ultimate what if, because he never gave us that. He never gave us that one moment, that one ultimate fight that made his career, like a Salvador Sanchez had with Wilfredo Gomez and Little Red Lopez. He never gave us that. He never had the chance to step up for that. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy it's a tragedy because what he did, his actions, and it's a tragedy for us boxing fans as well. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody, and leave your comments on what you think and how you view Edwin Valero now after the tragedy. If you see him just as he was when he fought, or as a scumbag, as a wife killer and a wife beater and a coward for murdering himself right after, or what do you think? Definitely the man's an enigma, but he had unmatched potential, and this mental illness just ruined everything. All right, everybody, peace.